Hi guys, welcome back to Kim's class. Today's lesson is lesson number 3 of 6 about at school. And even more specifically, we're going to continue to talk about problems and solutions when it comes to learning. Let's go ahead and look at today's objectives. The first objective says, I can ask and answer yes/no questions with ever using the present perfect and the past participle. The second objective says, I know the past participle form of both regular and irregular verbs and can use them correctly in a sentence. So we're going to continue talking about the present perfect and the past participle, just like we did in the previous lesson, but we're going to add a little bit more to it. So we're going to talk about how to use the word ever. Let's go ahead and look at the grammar focus and I'll explain it then. So on your screen, you see the grammar focus for today. We're talking about the present perfect. We're going to ask questions using the word ever and give short answers, either saying yes or no. Now, we use ever with the present perfect to ask yes or no questions about things that happened at any time before now. Before we look at the complete structure, let's go ahead first and take a peek at some past participle verbs. So, just like in regular past tense, we have regular verbs that end in ed, and then we have irregular verbs, that do all sorts of crazy things. So the regular verbs that we're going to use today are ask, which we add ed and becomes asked. Talk, add ed, becomes talked. And then we have the word try. In the past tense, we do add an ed, making it tried, but look what happens to the y. We drop that y and we change it for an I. So instead of try, we have tri, and then the ed. Now let's look at some irregular verbs. I have a list of the common irregular verbs that we'll be doing in today's lesson. Do, done. Forget, forgotten. Get, gotten. Lose, lost. Make, made. Read, read. Do you see how it's spelled the same, but pronounced like the color red? Read, read. Take, taken. Write, written. You might want to make a list of some of these irregular verbs. It's the best way to learn what happens to the verb when it changes. We're going to be using those verbs throughout today's lesson. So now that we've talked about those silly little verbs, let's now look at the yes/no questions with the word ever. Now, once again, look at your pronoun to decide whether you're going to use the verb have with you, we, and they, or whether you'll start your sentence with has, which we would use for the pronouns she and he. Let's go ahead and put this together. So question, Have you ever forgotten the teacher's name? This is where you put that verb in past participle. Forget becomes forgotten. Have you ever forgotten the teacher's name? Yes, I have. No, I haven't. Have we ever forgotten the teacher's name? Yes, we have. No, we haven't. Have they ever forgotten the teacher's name? Yes, they have. No, they haven't. Now we're going to change to the word has. Has she ever asked the teacher a question? Yes, she has. No, she hasn't. Has he ever asked the teacher a question? Yes, she has. No, he hasn't. So, remember that past participle verb goes after the word ever. You can substitute any verb as long as you're putting it after the word ever. All right, sometimes I think the best way to learn a grammar structure is to practice it. Well, that's the best way to learn anything, is to practice it. So in a moment, you're going to see some questions. You are going to choose whether to use has or have to start your sentence, and then the verb in the past participle. Go ahead and look on your screen and you will see the activity that we're talking about. So I've given the correct answer, meaning no, he hasn't, yes, I have, no, she hasn't. You just need to write the question. So below the question, you see a name, and then you see a verb. You need to use that name to decide whether you're going to choose have or has to start your sentence. And then you're going to take the verb and change it into past participle. Let's do number one as an example. First, I'm going to give you a non-example. We're not going to say, has Ethan ever talked to his counselor? We're going to take the word talk and put it into the past participle. So first, we know that Ethan is the pronoun he, so we're going to use the word has to start our sentence. So here we go. Has Ethan, and now I'm going to add the word ever. Has Ethan ever talked to his school counselor? Answer, no, he hasn't. So, you think you got it? Let's give it a shot. Go ahead and work through the rest of these questions. Pause the video while you're doing it. When you finish, turn the video back on and I'll give you the correct answers. Go ahead and pause your video now. All right, class, let's see how we did. We've already done number one as an example, so let's start with number two. Number two, have you ever forgotten your teacher's name? Number three, has Mia ever read a book in English? Number four, have Enzo and Leah ever been late to school? Number five, have you ever tried to speak English with your neighbors? Number six, has he ever taken the wrong bus to school? Number seven, have Felix and Leon ever done the wrong homework? And number 8, has Ida ever written an essay for school? So how did we do? It's okay if you're still trying to catch on. You can always try the activity again, or we can try it in a different way, because I have a new way now, another activity to learn more about asking and answering questions using ever. So on your screen, you will see regular verbs and irregular verbs. On the top are a choice of verbs in their base form. The first thing I'd like you to do is take those verbs in their base form and decide, are they regular, which means I'm going to add ed, or are they irregular, which means I'm going to have to do something else. Fill in the boxes for the regular and the irregular verbs first, and then try to do the 7 activities. So, as you're doing this activity, you're going to pause your video, and then when you finish, turn the video back on, and I will give you the answers. Go ahead and pause your video now. All right, class, let's go ahead and look. First, let's talk about the verbs that you've put in the regular verb box and the irregular verb box. Now, don't worry if you didn't do the words in the same order, as long as you have the right regular and right irregular verbs. So here's how I did it. For regular verbs, I have underlined, studied, asked, and tried. Now, tried is a regular verb. We just have to spell it a little differently. Now, under irregular verbs, I have written, forgotten, made, and done. So, using those words, let's see how we did with the sentences. Let's look at number 1. Number 1, have you ever asked for more homework? Answer, no, I haven't. Number 2, has your teacher ever forgotten your name? Answer, no, she hasn't. Number 3, have they ever been late for school? Answer, yes, they have. Number 4, has Isak ever done the wrong homework? Answer, yes, he has. Number 5, have you ever read a book in English? Answer, yes, I have. Number 6, has Sho ever spoken in class? Answer, no, he hasn't. Number 7, has Natalia ever lost her work? Answer, yes, she has. All right, guys, that was 2 great practices we've had. I hope you've learned something from those activities. Let's look at the objectives and see if we did. Can you ask and answer yes/no questions with ever, using that present perfect and past participle? I think you can. Do you know the past participle form of both regular and irregular verbs? And can you correctly use them in a sentence? I think you can. So class, that's the end of today's lesson. But before you go, I'd like you to do 4 things for me. Would that be all right? The first thing I'd like you to do is to hit the like button below. The second thing I'd like you to do is to subscribe to this YouTube channel. That way you can be notified every time I post new videos. The third thing, if you think that someone else you know might enjoy this lesson as much as I hope you did, share it with them. And the last thing, in the comments section below, I'd like you to write me 2 sentences. The first sentence can be about a study problem you have. Then, using some of the tips that you've learned in today's lesson, write what you could do to overcome that problem. So for now, I'm going to say goodbye, and I'd like to thank you for allowing me to come on this journey with you to learn English. Goodbye for now. I hope to see you soon.